I'm Jeff Dunn. This is Haden McWhorter. We'd like to invite you to listen in on our conversation where we spoke in depth about Haden's involvement in Susan G. Komen over the last 20 years, why he got involved and some of the impact that he has been able to make, but most especially information about a disease that affects so many. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we enjoyed having it, and most especially, we hope that you find encouragement to get involved and support such a wonderful cause that's helping the lives of so many people. Let's get started with your backstory. So tell us a little bit about where you're from, what you're doing in technology here in Nashville, and start with there.
Okay. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama originally. I went to Auburn University, so I'm an Auburn fan. Graduated in 1990, and after 1990, I went to Dallas, Texas for a couple of years. And then the company I was working for was part of HCA, or had been a spinoff of HCA, and came to Nashville in 1992, and I've been in Nashville ever since. And so spent all my time in healthcare technology. I'm currently the CIO at Premise Health. We're a direct primary care organization for large self-insured employers. And so I've been with Premise for 12 years now, and love it. I love my company. I love the people I work with. I have a great team.
Yeah, we met through Technology Leaders Network, and several of your team members are people that I've met and gotten to know, and they always speak very highly of you. So that's a testament to your leadership. So
I have to give $5 out every time someone says nice. So I just have to start Venmoing people.
Just an open tab.
That's right. Exactly right.
Well, we're here to talk about Susan G. Komen,
Yep.
Your involvement with them, and so really keen to hear your story. You and I have gotten to know each other really well over the last 5 or 6 years, and we've talked about myriad of things: baseball cards, Alabama versus Auburn,
Yeah.
Growing up in Alabama, but we've never really talked about your involvement with Susan G. Komen, but most especially why you're involved. You've mentioned it briefly, so tell us a little bit about what drove you to get involved with Susan G. Komen.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. A precursor to, I started getting involved with Komen in 2004. Prior to that, though, I should have been involved, and here's why. So probably my sophomore year of college, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she went through all the treatments, went through chemo, went through radiation, and we were fairly sure she was in remission. She had was doing great. She went back to school. She had been at Auburn back in the 50s and did not graduate. She got married to my dad, and so she left her final year. And so she always wanted to go back and get her degree. So she went to the University of Alabama in Birmingham, UAB, became a social worker, and went to work for HealthSouth. And so she worked for the HealthSouth Hospital as a social worker. And in 93, we were moving her out of her house, and she was telling me she didn't feel good. And she said that they'd run some tests on her. She didn't feel good, but with her history, they thought that maybe they should, look to see, make sure that her cancer had not come back. Well, unfortunately, Christmas of 93, we found out that her cancer had metastasized, and it was pretty much all over the place. It spread to her brain, it spread to major organs, it spread to her bones. And so that was hard because my mom, even talking about it now, after all these years, it gives me chills because my mom was my best friend. My mom was my confidant. My mom was the person I am today is due to my mom. The advice she gave me, you and I both grew up in the South. There were things that the South gets a lot of bad press about a lot of things that probably they should get a lot of bad press about. But there are some wonderful things about being from the South, the sense of family, the sense of community, the things that you do for each other. And my mom taught me all that stuff, and she taught me business. She taught me how to treat people, how to lead, without her even knowing she was doing it when we taught. And so unfortunately, the good news for me was I was living in Nashville. She was in Birmingham. So when she was re-diagnosed, I was able to go back and forth fairly frequently. But she passed away in 1995, and she was 53 at the time, getting ready to turn 54. So she was young. Like at the time, I didn't realize how young she really was, because today I'm 56. And it's hard to imagine leaving that early. And so she's been gone since 1995. So it's almost 30 years. I think about her every day. and really then I should have gotten involved. And I always thought I should be involved, but I didn't do anything then. Every once in a while we'd make donations, so we'd do stuff. So fast forward to 2003. I'm married. My wife and I had just had our second child. It was December 2003. Go into 2004, and she calls me one day and she said, something's wrong. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, I have a large lump in my breast. And I was like, well, sweetheart, it's probably just a clogged milk duct. It's probably something like that. And she's like, no, something's wrong. I just know something's wrong. And having my mom's background, and my mom and my late wife had never met, but knowing what my mom went through, I said, look, we shouldn't worry about it. We should go to the doctor and see what the doctor says. So we went to the doctor. They confirmed it was a lump. They confirmed that it was something there, but we didn't know what it was. April 1st, and I just remember because it was Fool's Day, we go and we have a radiologist look at it. They did a needle biopsy, and they said, this is not cancer. But you should have it taken out. You're too young to have this sitting in your body. She was 37 at the time. And so I ended up going on a guy's trip. She's like, you need to go on your guy's trip. Everything's fine. We're good. Well, about 2 weeks later, we go to a surgeon to have it taken out. And that's when things started changing. He's like, we need to get this out. This does look pretty nasty. And we're like, what do you mean looks pretty nasty? And he said, well, it's not a good looking tumor. And I was like, well, that's not what they told us. So that started a whole period of, we found out that she had breast cancer. She had stage 3 breast cancer. She was HER2 positive, which is, and I hope for my friends at Komen I get this right, but it's a protein that sits on top of the cancer that makes it aggressive. She was not estrogen sensitive, meaning that she couldn't take normal course of therapy because estrogen didn't affect her breast cancer. And so she went through treatments, went through radiation. That was all of 2004. And we started 2005. She was in remission. We thought things were going well. And she had a problem with her shin. And we went to her doctor, and her doctor was like, I wouldn't worry about it. The problem got worse. And what we found out is she already had bone cancer. So it already spread to her bones. And so we went through a 2.5-year battle with her being diagnosed with breast cancer, it metastasizing to her bones, her liver, her brain. And so in 2004, when she was diagnosed, we said, we need to do something. We want to do something to show support. And so we formed a team called Myra's Milers. It was the most, creative thing I could think of at the time, because we were trying to put in the miles, and we were doing it for her. First year, she went with us. I think the second year, she went with us. But our goal was to fundraise. Our goal was to fundraise and do things. And we were actually, anything that was cancer-based, we were participating in. We did the Komen. At the time, it's called Race for the Cure, and we did, the American Cancer Society had a walk. So we did all that stuff. But in 2007, she passed away. The cancer was just too aggressive, and she was too far, and she passed away. And at the time, my oldest was 5, and my youngest was getting ready to turn 4. And so she passed away 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving. And so I was fortunate that my family was there, my dad was there, my brother was there with his family to support me and to support the girls. But having to tell your kids that, that their mom's gone is something that I'll never forget. It's you being a new dad now, you can understand it's no child should ever go through that.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about Myra.
Let me see, where do I start?
How'd you guys meet?
So it's funny. I'm the luckiest man in the whole entire world, and I'll tell you why. I have met both my wives off of basically blind setups. So I met Myra at a party. I thought I was going to a party that I was being encouraged to go to by a friend of ours. It was her best friend. When I got there, I realized that we were getting, like, everybody was getting set up. It was like 4 guys, 4 girls, and we hit it off. It was incredible. And when I met Leanne, her brother worked in the technology department when I was the CIO, and somebody came up to me and said, hey, are you ready to, it'd been, a year and a half, and you think you're ready to date? I was like, maybe, like, you're married. It was one of the guys. He's like, I said, you're married. Like, haha, but, and so I met Leanne through the kind of the similar thing. But, Myra was amazing. She was an amazing woman. Super smart, super quick-witted. You know, I do get to see her every day when I see my girls, because my oldest has a lot of her. It's funny. My oldest has kind of some of the McWhorter side, but she's very much like her expression, the things she says, very much like her mom. And my middle daughter has her personality, like doesn't suffer a fool. It's going to tell you what she's thinking, going to tell you how she's thinking it. And so it's, you know, I get a little bit of that every single day. And plus I'm super, super close to Myra's family. That's, like I said, that's my family. So my mom passed away in 95 and my dad passed away in 2015. And so Myra's family, we just call Myra's family my family. And so, you know, this weekend I was there and we were talking about how much like my sister-in-law looks like Myra, and like the girls see old pictures and they're not sure, like, is this mom or is this B, or, you know, so, but she was super smart, super outgoing. You know, it's not fair. It's just not fair. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to the girls. You know, I would have traded places any day because, you know, girls need their mom, and that's where I'm blessed. I'm blessed because I had my sister-in-law and my nieces. My nieces are of an age that they're more like aunts to my girls, and they all stepped in. They all stepped in to help any way they could and be there. And I think it was a way for them to heal, but it was also a way for them to stay participating in the girls' lives. And then when I met Leanne, it was kind of her same focus was the girls. And you know, I'll tell you this story that always sticks out to me, which I think really helped Leanne. When Leanne came, at the time I was living in Clarksville. So Myra's family was from Clarksville, that area. We were living in Clarksville, and I was commuting in every day. And when she had, you know, I started dating Leanne, I was still living in Clarksville, and she came to visit me one Friday. We were going to go out on a date, and she drove up, and my mother-in-law was at my house. She was making dinner for the girls. She had just shown up. I think she knew that I had a date, but she had just shown up and she was fixing dinner. And she has always looked like a grandmother. She is, all the years I've known her, she's always looked like a grandmother. And Leanne walked in, and obviously you walk into somebody who's lost their wife, and there's, you know, even though time has passed, you could, obviously you're sensing there's a lot of stuff going on. And my mother-in-law walked up to her, gave her the biggest hug, and said, "I'm just so proud to meet you and blessed. And Haden's told me so much about you." And from that moment on, Leanne would have done anything for my mother-in-law. She would have moved heaven and earth for my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law she knew. And so, but yeah, they have an amazing family. Myra was amazing. My family is amazing. And now, you know, my new family is amazing. So I'm a super fortunate person.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons for us doing this is to help support fundraising.
Yes.
Having this interview, we really want to, you know, especially with the advancement of technology, it seems to me that there's a lot of opportunity for the monies that's raised to make a much bigger impact.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about like your goals and the vision for the Susan G. Komen fundraising, the timelines, and what you feel would be the optimal way people listening in or could get involved and contribute to the mission.
Well, the first thing they need to do is start a team. So even if you're not joining my team, what I would tell people is start a team and start fundraising. And you can Google Komen, Tennessee. It'll take you to the Tennessee website for Komen. Komen now is under one umbrella under Tennessee. You can go there and you can register it'll show you the races or the walks that are occurring, and you can go and register. It's got a pretty easy way to set up a team, or if you've had a team in the past, restart a team. That's the first thing you need to do, is start a team if you want to get involved. Be a team captain. It's great because Komen provides you the tools. They provide you links for Instagram and Facebook. They give you the ability to build canned messages. And so if you want to get involved and you want to start there, that's the first thing I would say. Until the race comes. That may be why people think of me as the Komen guy, because that's when I pop up every year. But we'll start putting out links to join the team or links to fundraising. The website's great, a lot of opportunity, a lot of data there that you can go to. So that's what we'll start doing. And now, over the last 3 or 4 years, you and I have talked about this. So from a competitive standpoint, over the last 3 or 4 years, the team has averaged raising somewhere between 15 and 18,000. And usually it's me. And that's because instead of the team growing now, people that were on the team, they just donate directly to me. But so somewhere we're in between 15 and 18,000. I would love to see the participation get back up to where our team and other teams are really over the 20K mark. In a perfect world, I'd like to see, and this is me more kind of throwing on my old board hat and less about my team, but we used to have wonderful competitions. Vanderbilt would get involved. My company got involved. My former company and my company now, Premise Health, has donated in some shape, form, or fashion every single year. But because most of the people that I work with have been with me through my stories, they know the story. They knew Myra. They knew a lot of the stuff that's going on. But I would love to see organizations get more and more involved. But it's hard. And so what people need to understand is, like, October used to be protected. That was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And now that's not the same anymore. There's lots of organizations that pick September, October, November to be their months now. And so it can be quite overwhelming if you are trying to be conscious and to give money. You're going to get hit a lot, and so I think what you have to do personally is, where do you want to see the funds go? And I think at the end of the day, the focus is fundraising. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start the team. We're going to send emails out. You're going to help me from a social media aspect. We're going to try to get more people talking about it. We're going to try to get more people involved. And we're going to try to raise a ton of money this year so we can finally end this disease, or at least if a woman or man gets diagnosed, that they don't feel like they had a weight saddled on them, that there's hope and there's things that they know they can do, and that there are going to be people there and research there that's going to make them better.
And there's a plan.
There's a plan.
Speaking of statistics, can you speak to, because I would wager that there are some people that are going to be watching this that are affected by breast cancer, may not know anyone, but one in eight women will get breast cancer. 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer. And so where that becomes really impactful is when you sit. One year we had a fundraiser that the city of Brentwood did for us. It was I think we are actually participating in something that they were doing, but they allowed us to come speak. The race was coming up, and the tables were of 8s. And so we just randomly put, a dot or a tag on a table, and people would sit down, and then we'd say, okay, 1 in 8 women, usually 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer. And so if you have this pink bouquet sitting in front of your seat, you would have been the one diagnosed with breast cancer. Yeah. That is impactful for people when they sit there and you're sitting at a table and you're like, okay, you have it. And so that's something that's hard. That's something that's hard. But if you have a lot of women in your life and you start counting up, you're like, okay, I have 16, like my family, I have 16 women that I'm very close with. Does that mean that 2 of the women here are going to get breast cancer? What age range? Because I imagine some women in college think that might not impact them. But
that's great. Yeah, no, it's all age ranges. I want to say, and I haven't been around the Komen guys in a long time, but I think one year we had a 15-year-old that was diagnosed with breast cancer here in the state of Tennessee. Myra, when she was diagnosed, she was around 36, 37. I worked with, there was a woman, her name is Jenna Lynn, that she was the race chair the first year I participated. And she was in her 20s when she was diagnosed. She and I are still friends on Facebook. She seems to be doing great. But you can't look at this and say this is somebody that is a 55 or plus disease anymore. You have to look at it with so many cancers. We have such good technology now that you have to be vigilant from the very beginning. Again, going to see your doctor, doing the routine tests you should do, doing self-exams, being aware of your family history, being aware of your body. You do have to do those things now. It's just like with many other cancers, we're starting to see that the the time frames that we put on them are just not, you think you're safe until you get to 50. You think you're safe until you get to 40 or whatever. You need to be proactive now. You're absolutely right.
What else would you like someone to know that is listening to this about breast cancer, about Susan G. Komen, about the fight, but most especially about the emotional impact that people that either have or have family members that have are going through?
Well, the first thing I would say is my story is not everybody's story. And I tell anytime that I haven't done it as much here lately, but I was very fortunate for a while there with my position that if somebody was diagnosed, normally I would get a call from the husband and just to talk about what should I expect, what should I know. And so it's, I always told them, I said, my story is not your story. So this does not mean that something bad is going to happen to your wife or your mom or your sister. It just means here are the things that I went through and here are the things that you need to know. So everybody's story is their story. So don't gauge yourself off of how well somebody else responded or how, what age somebody, don't just run your race. I don't want to say stay in your lane, because take all the information you can in, but just know you are you. You're an individual, you're unique, and bodies are unique on how they handle things. So that would be my first thing. My second thing is everybody handles the news differently. Some, I won't even say it's fight or flight. Some women and men, they're ready to fight, and they're going to show up to every single doctor's appointment ready to fight. They're going to show up to every Komen event, every American Cancer event. They're going to show up to everything ready to fight, because that's just like their style. There are going to be others that don't want to talk about it. They because they feel like their bodies have let them down, or they've let people around them down, or they're feeling like my future is now uncertain. And so just know you got to give people space. But I would also say, as a co-survivor, I haven't met one co-survivor that has said, poor pitiful me, but I would say you got to take care of the co-survivors too, because they're the people that are actually usually taking care of the spouse or a loved one or their mom or dad. In my case, again, my mom or my wife, they're the ones taking care of it. And you just never know. It kind of goes back to the golden rule. I say this to my girls all the time: treat people the way you want to be treated, or maybe treat people the way they should be treated. And just understand that everybody, no matter what it looks like on the outside, could be or should probably is fighting something. And just be kind, be kind and be outgoing to people. That's what people need. And this, read the room a little bit. When you're meeting someone that has been diagnosed or something, you want to be thoughtful in your approach. You just want to be kind and know that they're going through a lot of stuff. But if you are hearing this and you're someone that's been diagnosed, this every year, because of research, because of what Komen does and others are doing, every year your chances improve of surviving. And especially if we get you early, this is going to be something that's going to be in your rearview mirror. You're just going to continue to move on. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's great words of encouragement. I can imagine, someone going through this new and seeing you having gone through it, and what impact is possible would be encouraging for them.
I hope so.
So tell me a little bit about the future of breast cancer research and the future of, like, obviously the goal is to find a cure, but what's the path to that? Where are we going? What do we want to achieve with, year by year until we get to a cure?
What I would tell people to do is go to the Komen, the main website. There is a plan that you can go out there and see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get accomplished. What I can tell you on the short side is maybe on the layman's side. The first thing we're trying to do is, again, like you said, we're trying to work for access to care, and we're trying to work for the incurable cancers, the ones that, like Myra got, that it's like, okay, this thing is going to go south fast. How do we slow it? How do we stop it? How do we provide the best quality of life for the person that's going through it? I think that's one. The other is Komen is doing a lot of research around data and pulling data in, because there are a lot of women across the U.S. that their access to healthcare is just not as great, because they may live in a rural area. They may be in an area that's just not well served by the healthcare community. And we are trying to, I say we, it's not we, it's Komen is trying to pull together data so that they can share that data with other organizations, with other docs and things like that. So they have access to understand what they're seeing. And so that's a huge driver. The gentleman that's running that is a friend of mine that lives here locally, and he's an amazing scientist, and I know he's doing great things. That's our focus in fundraising. I mean, again, I hate to come back to it. It is about the money, because money drives all this. Like any other business, money drives this. But by providing the money to Komen, they can afford to give the grants. I mean, like what we used to tell people here locally, because people would say, well, I want my dollars to stay local. Well, a lot of times the dollars would go to the national office, but would come right back to Nashville, because you had Vanderbilt or you had other big learning institutions that are doing all this research that is being powered by Komen, but it's here local. So you are getting your donation, while it might be going to a national organization, more than likely is coming back to you locally too, through these grants for research and looking at ways we can cure the disease.
What else would you like people to know, or what are some final words or charges you would like to for people listening to hear and to know?
Besides donate, I'll just keep saying donate, donate, donate. The other is be active in your community. Even if Komen is not the thing you want to do, be active in your community. Because what I can tell you, over all the years I volunteered, whether it's with Komen or sports teams or things like that, lots of times there are a small group of the large. It's like the 80-20 rule. If you took 100 people, 20% of the people that are showing up every single day, those 80%, it's not that they don't want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved or whatever else. I would tell people, if you should get involved in your community to do something better for the community, find your passion, and there are ways to connect you. It's not going to come to you. You've got to go find it. But if you have somebody that, again, for breast cancer, if you have someone that's been affected by breast cancer, you can go to the Komen website, and there are ways to ask questions, get involved, find out when events are coming. Get involved. Donate first. If I have friends who say, I am not going to get involved, but I will give you as much money as I can, and I will spread the word. And that's awesome. But if you can do that and you can get involved, that's even better.
The walk that happens every year. Yes. I would imagine that you've probably been a part of 20 of those.
Yeah. This year will be 20, my 20th year. That's right.
So are there any walks that stand out more than any of the others? Obviously, I'm sure the first one was a pretty emotional walk.
After she passed away, the year that she did pass away, 2007, was our biggest year. The team was the biggest. We raised, I think, $30,000 for research. We had 300 people on the team. After that, I became part of the Komen team. I was the race chair. I put on the races for Komen. It was a volunteer position. Ended up becoming part of the board, and eventually became the board president. And so from 2000 and I would say 7 on, the focus was, how do I make sure my girls know that they're going to be okay? Because their grandmother on my side had passed away from breast cancer. Their mom had passed away from breast cancer. So they had it on a paternal and a maternal side, which it's, breast cancer is not, there is definitely a hereditary thing. There's lots of women that go through, and men that go through that from hereditary standpoint. But I don't know that that's what our deal would be. But how do I tell the girls we're still fighting? Even though their mom's not here, we're still fighting. And so I made it my kind of thing. I was going to keep the team going, and I was going to keep going. In 2007, we focused just with Susan G. Komen, because as you start to learn more, you realize that Susan G. Komen is specifically looking for breast cancer research. Other groups are trying to also do research, but Susan G. Komen is specifically for breast cancer. And I wanted any dollar that we raised to go to research for breast cancer. So I tend to tell a lot of stories, that maybe from Alabama, that's why I do that. But that's how I got involved. That's why I got involved. That's why I stay involved today. I'm no longer on the board. I retired from that position.
How long were you on the board?
I was part of the board in one shape or another for 12 years.
Okay.
And so I think that's right. I think it was from 2010 to 2022 is when I was on the board.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what were some big, because I can imagine being on the board, you had a particularly unique opportunity to make even more of an impact from a leadership perspective. So what were some experiences, or what were some things that you were particularly fond of?
Well, the things that I remember, so the mobile mammography was something that I was not the board president at the time. There was another awesome guy that was the board president at the time, but that's something that we funded early as I was on the board. That board presented and supported. That was through Ascension now, it's through St. Thomas, where our goal was to get to women who may not have access to care so that they could have checkups and things like that. And you would be surprised, in every neighborhood we would go to, even if you went to a neighborhood you would think would have health care versus a neighborhood you wouldn't, we would get a lot of people that would turn out to that. I was really proud that we did that. We were focused on fundraising, so everybody there was focused on bringing dollars in, helping for research. At the end, we were focused on bringing, you could think of at the time, this was no longer this way now, but prior, it was almost like franchises. And so if you wanted to start a Komen office in your area, you could start one. You just had to start fundraising, you had to have volunteers, you had to do those things. And what we realized here in Middle Tennessee is that we had several others that if we would come together as one, that we would be able to impact more women and men, we would be able to impact more research, we'd be able to drive more dollars, and we'd be able to focus on the areas that we needed to focus on. So we really took over the Middle Tennessee area. We brought in Upper Cumberland, we brought in a couple, one more I think, affiliate under the Nashville umbrella. Memphis had their umbrella, and then Knoxville had the East Tennessee. So that was a lot of work. That was a lot of work bringing people together, because you had a lot of folks that were doing this. Most of the time you're dealing with volunteers. I mean, we had a small office here that we had a paid director and a couple of paid employees, but for the most part you're dealing with volunteers. And volunteers have their own special reason why they're doing that. They're doing it for somebody that was a loved one. They're doing it because they're a survivor. And so bringing all those folks together was fun, exciting, and hard all at the same time.
I could imagine, because you have a lot of people that are very emotionally driven and doing it for a purpose. So I could imagine that there's a lot of navigating.
I have a lot of respect for any organization that puts on events like this, because to put on an event to make sure that people come and have a good time, that people understand the mission, that people understand what you're trying to do, but that you're also keeping people safe and that you're keeping people protected, and all the things that have to go on that. I go to events now for other organizations, and I'm always just in awe of how people bring all those things together, because you're bringing a lot of people in one area, and they all have different reasons that they're there and why they're there. But if you ever have a chance to go to one of these walks, you really need to participate, because what you'll see is one of the things that every year brought me chills is we would have a parade of survivors. And so all the survivors would meet in a tent, and then they would have a sign that said how long they've been in remission or how long they've been a survivor. And you would have everybody from a year to months, like 3 months, people who just finished treatment, all the way up to, we had somebody that I think was in year 25. Wow. But you see all these women and men come together, and it's emotionally overwhelming. Every single time it's emotionally overwhelming. Or seeing people who want to participate when they don't feel good, especially people that are going through treatment. I'm an extrovert. I get a lot of energy from being around people, but even for me, that can be overstimulating because of everything that's going on.
Right. A lot of emotions.
A lot of emotions.
In one place.
Yes.
So I think one thing that a lot of people would be interested to understand is the money that's raised from Susan G. Komen. Where is that allocated, and what progress is being made on breast cancer research, and what are the funds used for?
Well, so today the funds are used for research. I mean, that everything we're trying to do, we're trying to get to research. And I should say, I'm not a Komen representative anymore. This is from my time on the board and what I was doing on the board. But there are avenues for fundraising where we try to help and support men and women that need access to care. So there are things that Komen does a wonderful job of trying to provide funds to local regional areas. But where we're really trying to get the dollars is to research. And we're trying to look at health equity. We're trying to look at the incurable cancers. And when I first started this, it was all about early detection. And then I would say several years ago, we had so many women and men that were going through, their cancers had metastasized, and what are we doing to help them? And that's when the focus started looking at that. But I want to say from one of my friends at Komen, he told me that of the 19 drugs that have come out in the last 10 years that are effective drugs towards treatment of breast cancer, those 19 drugs, Komen has participated in the research and or contribution in some way for all 19 drugs. And so it's one of those diseases that we learn something new every single year. We learn new drugs. If you look, when Myra, that was my late wife, when Myra went through her cancer, she was HER2 positive, something I told you. That was something that they had just learned about. And there was a drug called Herceptin that they were giving to women that Myra took it, but probably took it a little bit. It was already in trials, and so she had to wait to get her through the trial area. But now that drug is just a common course of therapy, and probably now there's even a new course of therapy that they're doing. So, for a lot of our disease states, if we can, get people to that next year, there's always something new coming. Now, it's not always, in my case, for Myra, it wasn't at the right time. But I know for men and women that are going to get this disease, they're going to be in a better place than she was. Even if they turned up and had the exact same things she did, they're going to be in a better place than she was because of the research and development, the things that we know now.
And that's what keeps you going year after year, seeing that progress. And
my girls keep me going. And so in 2010, so here's a little bit of a story I should tell you. So I grew up with all boys. I have two younger brothers. One of them just recently passed away a couple of years ago, but I have two brothers. All of our cousins, for the most part, were men. We did have one or two female cousins, but it was a lot of boys. And when I got married to Myra, her whole family is girls. And so, I kind of felt like God put me in a position to be around a bunch of women. And I feel blessed for it. And I'll tell you, when my first daughter, Ava, popped up and she was a girl, my whole family was surprised. And then when my second daughter was born, my dad's like, where are the girls coming from? Like, we don't make girls, we only make boys. And, and so I think that was part of it. And then I got remarried in 2010. And when I got remarried, my wife, Leanne, had a little girl named Anna, which it confuses people sometimes because she's my daughter. And I just say, this is my daughter, and she calls me her dad. And so I have 3 daughters. So I have all these women in my house, and I feel overly protective of them to make sure that they are doing the things that they need to do. I mean, I think partly being a dad, being single and having daughters and having a lot of women in my life, from my late wife's family, who I'm very, very, that's my family I'm very close with. I have conversations that most dads don't get to have conversations. So we talk about, are you doing self-exams? Are you doing these things that will help you? Because if we detect it early, if we know to start getting you tested, if we know to start looking at stuff and something pops up, it's probably going to be nothing. It's probably going to be, like if something ever were to pop up, we'll get it taken care of and you'll go on about life. Because the opportunity for, I think one time, I'm gonna get the statistic wrong, but stage 0 to 1, where you just early detection, it's like a 98% survival rate, 95% survival rate. So that's why I do it now. It's like, I want my girls to know that we're still fighting, that we're still trying to find a cure, the dad's still trying to do something. And so they don't forget their mom, or they don't feel like people have forgotten their mom. And even, Leanne now, she thinks it's very important that we do this fundraising. She thinks it's very important that there's pictures of Myra through our house. So all the girls have pictures of Myra in their bedrooms. And my sister-in-law looks exactly like my late wife did. And so I'm very fortunate, but I do it for them. And I do it for everybody else too, but it would be probably not genuine if I say, yes, I'm out there doing it for all these men and women. It's really, I'm doing it for my kids, and all these men and women are getting the benefit of the dollars, but I'm doing it for my girls.
I've heard a couple people say that, and they base it on the work you've done for Susan G. Komen over 20 years, and you are Susan G. Komen here in Middle Tennessee, and that's remarkable.
Well, that's awesome that you've heard that, but that's not fair. There's so many men and women here that are doing so many wonderful things, that from research, for working for Komen, for volunteering, that you see, unfortunately over the years, you see people that leave. Like, I think that for some, especially those that have been touched one way or the other, it's too painful. And then sometimes they're tired. It's like, well, I don't want to, that was a point in my life. I've talked to survivors who don't come anymore, and I'll call them and say, hey, you're going to come to the walk. And no, that's an old part of my life. And so you do have these ebbs and flows, but there's a lot of men and women that are still, after all the years I've been involved, who are there way before me, who are doing a great job. And so I super appreciate you saying that. But when I think of people, I think of like my old board director. I think about the people that were on the first board that I worked with. Those are the people I think about.
Yeah. I think it's a testament to the same way you lead in business. You lead from the front. Like you go and you show people what's possible, and you set the velocity, and that's inspiring. And I think that's what they're referring to when they say that you are Susan G. Komen, because I feel very confident that when you came in, you set that velocity that was probably substantially higher than what it was before you joined, just because
I don't know.
You are who you are.
I don't know about that. I just hope I've done a good job. I hope that we've done things that are impactful for the right reasons. Yeah.
Well, looking at the research in here, and you speak to the research, it sounds like progress is being made, which is wonderful. You hear all too often of friends and loved ones being diagnosed with breast cancer, and you can speak to this probably a little bit better than I can, but early detection, you're basically, it's very, very treatable.
Yes. I mean, early detection is what we want. We want people, and again, it sounds not weird, but like I don't want to not say men too, because there is a gentleman that I worked with when I was on the board that was a male breast cancer survivor. It's rare, but men do have the same, there are risks that they have, but predominantly this is female oriented. And so, I think if you're getting, what I tell people all the time, I tell my girls this all the time, life does have a rule book, and if you follow the rule book, you're going to be better. And what some of the rules are: go every year and get a physical. Make sure your doctor is seeing you and checking in on you, and you're doing the things that you need to do. Because if you let a grand period of time go by, or if you're not doing, you wouldn't let your car go hundreds of thousands of miles without doing maintenance, without doing the checkups. It's the same thing for your body. Are you seeing your physician? Are you having good conversations with your physician? Are you going to the doctors that you need to? Are you doing your self-exams? Not to take us off, but I think that I was diagnosed with prostate cancer a couple years ago. And that just happened to be because I went to see him, had my physical, and my doc said, hey, I think something looks a little bit off here. Thank you for doing this. I want you to know something. I don't think I've told you this, but I did tell one of my close friends at work, this is hard stuff to do. Life just kind of starts to happen. And you like I told you, my girls keep me busy, work keeps me busy. And over the years, it's hard sometimes. There's been several years I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it anymore. But then I look at my girls and stuff like that. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you reaching out and saying, hey, I want to help you raise a bunch of money. And I want to, what can we do? And how do we do it? And I'm very thankful for that, because, you've given me the spark. Us doing this has given me the spark I needed to hopefully have another great year. And to find people that want to do this is pretty special. So thank you. I mean, really sincerely thank you. Now, you're going to sign up for the team though, right?
Yes.
And you're going to donate, right?
That's right.
And you're going to tell all your friends to donate, right?
That's right.
All right. That's perfect.
Right.
That's perfect.
You make it easy to support. You make it easy to follow. And everything that you've done for me with Technology Leaders Network and what you've done for us at Tradix and just becoming your friend. I mean, you make it easy.
Well, you've made it pretty easy yourself just because you've never, Sydney and I talked about this. You've never asked for anything. You've only given. You've never asked for, you've asked for some time, but you've never asked for, and usually there's like, hey, do you want to donate? Hey, do you want to do this? Hey, do you want to do that? Like, hey, we don't work with you enough. We should work with you more. There's usually a hook. And I have a small group of friends that I do work with that are vendors or just I know through the community that never do that. And you're one of those folks. And I really do appreciate it. So you've made it very easy too. I every time you're like, hey, let's do this or let's do that, or hey, do you have time to look at this? Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you've got a great attitude and you're super easy to talk to. And I love all the pictures of Betty. That's always that I show my wife all the time. She's ready for grandkids. So yeah,
she's a blessing. I think it might be you mentioned something earlier that really resonated with me, the Alabama upbringing. I mean, nothing against Tennessee upbringing, but when we're raised, especially a small town. So the town I grew up in was less than 4,000 people. Everybody knew everybody. And if one person, so our hobby growing up as a kid, we found a friend of ours that had to work for a weekend, and we would just go help him work. Like that's what we do for fun. We just help people out. There's fun in that, and the community that comes around that. And, I like to think that, Nashville to me now, having been here for 12 years and you've been here much longer. So it's probably the same for you. It's become kind of a small town. You have the relationships and you carry that, you never met a stranger and always looking out for an opportunity to serve mindset. And I think that's, I'm grateful for my upbringing. And I think that's kind of the tie that binds us.
I am too. I tell you, it's interesting because my mom and dad grew up in a little town called Gadsden, Alabama, which is north of Birmingham, and we had a little farm in a area called Cinder, Alabama. It's Cherokee County, Alabama. It's off Weiss Lake, and so my mom would go and visit our family, and we would have these big country meals that were awesome. But just in Gadsden, she would take me to, I told somebody this the other day, it was super impactful. She took me to a funeral when I was like 8, and we're in the car, it's just me with her, and she's like, look, you're going to understand the circle of life. There's life and death, and it's important that you go and not only go to pay your respects, but understand how it goes. And so she took me to the funeral home. I'd never seen a dead body before. It was a family member, and to this day, I can't tell you who it was, but then we went back to the house on this little main street, and, it was a huge lunch, and everybody talking and celebrating the person that passed away. And I'll tell you what was really hard. The hardest thing that I had to do, maybe, there's like a lot of hard things I had to do, but the hardest thing probably I had to do was when Myra was in hospice, and we knew she was, and I should say a live hospice is awesome. A live hospice is awesome. When she was at a live hospice, I knew she was going to pass away, and I had to make the decision if the girls should go to the funeral home or not. And again, one's 5 and one's 3. And I called my brother, who's my best friend. I called him, and I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, I need some time to think about this. I can't. And I remember I was sitting in the location we were at with the live hospice. They had a little break room, and I was sitting there, and I was crushed. And I just kept thinking, my mom would tell me to take the girls because they need to know there was a beginning and an end. They need to know that there was an end. It'll be important because, I didn't want them to think that, ever question that maybe mom was still alive and she left, or maybe some, you just don't know what kids are going to make up. And, but I remember she was sitting, my mom had to have been sitting there with me, because I remember my brother called me back and he goes, I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, I've already made up my mind. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to have the girls go. And so it was hard, but the girls went and they got a chance to see her. And then my brother and my sister-in-law and my nephews all went back to our house. So my brother's like, okay, I'm going to take them now. And so, you guys can have the visitation. And that was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do, is to, besides tell the girls, because when we told the girls, my oldest just kept saying, I knew it. And I didn't find out till years later. I was like, why is she saying that? That I guess her mom had told her, Myra had told her, that not to worry, she was going to be okay. And Ava, she said, I knew that she wasn't going to be okay. And she was upset with her for, that. It's my upbringing, my mom, the spirit of my mom, even the spirit of Myra. I knew Myra was with me. After she passed, I knew she was with me. All those things were important to get through that, and for the girls. So
I can't even imagine the difficulty of mourning while also trying to put on a confidence and everything's going to be okay for your daughters. Like, where did you find the strength? I guess obviously knowing that the spirit of Myra was still with you, but
part of it,
imagine that was tough.
Part of it, I just thought, what would my mom say? My mom would say, well, what else are you going to do? I mean, like, are you just going to crawl? Yeah, she was kind of a straightforward person. She's like, what else are you going to do? You're just going to, mope? Your kids need you. You need to, and I like to take care of people. I feel like that's kind of one of my roles. And, but it kind of goes back to, it was the best of a bad situation. Like, the girls saved me too. I mean, and Myra's family saved me too. Having family nearby, having my mother-in-law, having my sister-in-law, my brother-in-laws, having my nieces, having them. But the girls, the girls needed me to be dad and mom, but they needed me to be dad. So they didn't need me to, like, not come out of the bedroom or stuff like that. And that, honestly, that never crossed my mind. And for those that have that hard time, like, I'm not saying that's, everybody grieves in their own way, but I have a friend at work who lost her husband last year, and we talked about it a little bit. And I think, we both lost someone knowing that they were going to pass. And I think it's probably been harder for her because, her kids are grown. And, like, for me, I had a mission. Like, when my first mission was to take care of Myra. And when that mission ended, my next mission was make sure the girls had the best life they could have. And I hope, they've got a long way to go, but I hope we've set them off for a good place. And that kind of goes back to, when I do things like this, I'm also very hesitant to do things like this sometimes, because I don't want to open up old wounds for my girls or for my family. I think it's probably hard for my wife, for Leanne now. She's, in some ways, she's never said this, but I think about it, like, she's dealing with a ghost. And she's an incredible mom. She's been incredible to the girls. She's been incredible to all those. She could not have handled it any more graciously. And so, or loving, or have been exactly what the girls needed, even though sometimes they probably didn't think it was exactly. You would never know sometimes that we weren't all just blood related, because my oldest acts like my wife now. Sometimes, my middle daughter and my wife go at it just like most, teenagers do. The baby, my bonus daughter, who again, I just call my daughter, she is so much like me in so many different things. She's super analytical, and she's very specific about stuff that you say. And my wife will say from time to time, like, she'll say something and she'll go, okay, Haden, so I've been very blessed. So my girls made it easy. My girls didn't make it easy. It's all for them. I did not do anything special. Yeah. My family and my girls are the ones that got me through all this.
I see a theme. You always say you don't do something special, but everyone around you seems to disagree. So that's the humbleness.
I got a bunch of people. I got a bunch of people fooled. I'll tell you that. I just got a bunch of people fooled. No.
Well,
The most important question I saved for last. I also grew up around a bunch of boys, and having a 12-week-old daughter. How did you transition from growing up around a bunch of boys to being a girl dad?
Well, I think it's awesome being a girl dad because you're never going to have anybody coming after your throne. You will always be king.
That's right.
So just remember that. You'll always be king. What would I say? I'll tell you this again. I've been blessed to have girls, and I've been blessed for all the women that are in my life that keep me from doing stupid things or saying stupid things or not looking at the whole picture. And that not only my girls, but the women I work with. I have a very close group of men and women I work with, but the women keep me from saying and doing stupid stuff, which I truly appreciate. But there's going to be things, here's what I'll tell you. There's going to be things as a man that you never ever bothered you before and is going to really bother you now. And I know when Ava was born, like you look at women differently. You look at young women differently. You look at women differently. It's just, it's something funny, and it's in a solid way. It's very, very protective way for me. I couldn't watch, like, I went from a guy like watching the football game. They're the cheerleaders and stuff, and now I'm like, they should really put on more clothes, and they should really do this or do that. And my girls, I know my girls want to dress cute and look cute, and I'm like, guys, like, could I not afford the whole shirt? Could but. You're blessed. You're blessed to have a daughter. You're blessed to have Dana in your life too. I know from things you said, but you'll never look at. I'm sure everybody that has a son says the same thing. But for a dad, you'll just never look at anything ever the same again. Having a daughter, even if you have a son and all that other stuff from here on out, I hope the Lord blesses you with whatever you want. But a daughter changes you.
That's good advice. It's definitely changed my worldview overnight. It's wonderful to see her start to grow in her personality. I'm afraid she got her gift of gab from her father. She does not stop talking when she's awake or making noises. She's obviously not talking yet, but
well, that's my oldest daughter. It's the firstborn, I think. My oldest is a super extrovert. She loves people, loves to be with people. She's in the car, she's going to call you. My second daughter, it'll be interesting to see when you have your second child, if you guys do. She's much more direct. She doesn't suffer a fool. She is not, she and her sister in some ways are so much alike, and in some ways cannot be more polar opposites. Yeah. But they're all incredible. All three of my daughters are incredible. They have incredible gifts. They're incredible people. And I just hope I don't screw it up. I hope I'm keep them on the right trajectory.
Same. Well, Haden, thank you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is awesome. Thank you for listening in to my conversation with Haden. I hope if you've taken away anything from today's conversation is that there is impact that you can make, whether it be $5 or $500 or just your time donating and giving back. If I could provide you with encouragement to whether it's Susan G. Komen or any other organization that's doing good in the world, take time out of your day and contribute to that. That's important. To learn more about Susan G. Komen, you can visit the link that's being displayed now. And you have any other questions, there's a lot of opportunity to reach out, a lot of resources available on Susan G. Komen's website. Thank you for listening in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.